What's going on? This is Dr. J. Duncan with Mind St8 and Mind St8 Media, bringing you another perspective of the week. This week, we will be doing a book review of the book Cry Like a Man by Jason Wilson. Yep, you heard it right. Cry Like a Man. We will be doing a men's book review, if you will, to give you some of the topics that we discuss in our men's book club on this book, and to hopefully help you and encourage you to go read the book for yourself and explore some of the things that usually get swept under the rug. So, keep your mind open, be open for some new perspective, and let's get straight to it. Once again, if you didn't hear it the first time, my name is Dr. J. Duncan, and I am the host of a men's book club. We meet once a month virtually, the last Wednesday of the month at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, where a group of men get together and discuss a book of the month. Now, throughout the month, I give blog posts and topics. There's a chat room so that men can kind of converse with one another. And let's talk about these topics. A lot of these topics get swept under the rug, and we're just assuming that everyone has it all together, that everyone knows everything that they need to know. That's not always the case. And in fact, for this past month, we have been reading Cry Like a Man. I will put the name of the book and stuff below just in case you miss it, in case you don't want to rewind and get different things. But this video will not serve as a chapter by chapter, this is what the book is about, you should do A, B, and C, do I like the book, do I not like the book? No, this book review is to give you a gist of how it impacted the men in our group and what they had to say and share about the book. And hopefully that would help you, get some knowledge, and if you decide to buy the book, to be able to navigate it, learn it, and then add your perspective. So, just to start off, first and foremost, I am not sponsored or funded by any of the books that I review, or at least thus far, or anything of that nature. I own this book, as you see. This is my book. I do what I want with it. I highlight different things in the book and whatnot. Take care of my books. But I don't want you guys out there thinking that, the author is signing checks out here for people to be able to just to read the book and say they like it. This is an honest opinion. I'm sure that if other authors and things of that nature want the men to explore a book and they want to send a book our way, I'll be honest and tell you hey, we got this from the author, but this is the opinions that we got from the men's book club. So now that we got that out the way, hopefully you know that everything I'm about to say had been collected by the opinions of the men in the group, and these are some of the things that came up. So, in this book, the topic of generational trauma was very apparent. It literally, from the beginning of the book, you kind of get taken back in time to things that happened before the author's story really begins for themselves, about trauma that their family experienced racially and in society and things of that nature, and how that sets up the stage and performance for what we're going through throughout the book. Now, I think that this is important, and a lot of the men showed that they noticed this, is that things that happen to our family sometimes gets ingrained and is passed down through what we call generational trauma. In other words, your family goes through something, and it is not just in the way that they act to that time period. It's almost like it's part of your DNA now. You experience a trauma, and if that trauma isn't dealt with, you pass it off, even if it's never talked about to your family. Interesting topic, and I encourage you to think about things of like that, because a lot of people in our society are dealing with traumas that aren't even our own. They come from previous generations. So that was one of the first things that was shared. The next was the thing of family dynamics. Families, as we know, the whole nuclear family idea thing is there's no longer a thing, right? There isn't this is, 2-parent household, 2 kids and a dog, and, a fence. Not in 2021. Nope, not anymore. So, however you define family and how it functions, whether it's a dysfunctional family or a functional family, we still got to explore some of these things of how family members impact one another. And I feel one of the things that I shared in the book is you got to see how different members of the family carry different weight. It goes into the next point, which is it talks about like identity and where you get your identity from. In the book, the author talks a lot about getting the identity from the environment, but also family members. So if family members are going through trauma, this, that, and the other, and they're carrying this load along with them, sometimes it may block their view of other people that are in their surroundings. But guess what? The person that's looking up to them doesn't look and say, oh yeah, you're traumatized. I'm just going to forgive the trauma, and how you see me, I'm going to see that through the lens of maybe trauma. No, they see that as that is. My identity is wrapped up in your response to me and how you act around me, things of that nature. So this book really dive deep into what that looks like for a young man to grow up in a society and in a family that is going through an identity crisis, is going through generational trauma. And then it moves along into the approval of fathers. Now, like I said, the group that I work with is a men's book club. Some of the men in this group are fathers. And they shared that how the author wrote about his relationship with his father and how long it took to come to a equal playing ground or to gain that sense of connectiveness. So it plays out in a lot of men's life. A lot of men, lo and behold, do things for the approval of their father, whether they like their father or not. That approval thing is real. So for sons out there, like some of us as sons don't tell our fathers the weight that we see, how they carry themselves and how they treat us. Do they want to be around us? Are we a burden to them? And then a lot of fathers sometimes don't have that conversation with their sons of being like, yo, life might be hard. Life might present you with a lot of challenges, but at the end, middle, and beginning of the day, you are my son and we have this relationship. We can vibe, or we can learn together, or we might be at oppositions, but you're still my son. So that was a beautiful topic that was brought up in the book. Another one was relationships with both your brother or relationship with your sister, and I'm meaning this in the sense of not just like your biological, but your biological and your friendship and your surroundings. How do men relate to other men? How do men relate to men in your own family? And then on the vice versa, how do we relate to the women in our family? And how do we relate to the women in our community or women that we have relationships with? Sometimes your upbringing and sometimes your environment teaches you one thing, and then you get in the relationship or you get into a friendship and realize that other people don't necessarily act the same. There are some different things going on in different areas. People are raised differently or whatnot. And there's not right, wrong, or indifferent. But not paying attention to these things can have you off guard, or it can have you loving differently. You think that you need to be macho when really your significant other needs you to be sensitive. So we brought that up of how, like it said, the book is called Cry Like a Man. And some people are like, oh, that's being sensitive. I would argue, and a lot of men agreed with this, that sensitivity is a way to get the confidence. Why? Because sensitivity sometimes means being aware. Sometimes you let things out, but sometimes sensitivity means bringing things in. And then the continuation of doing this process builds confidence and awareness of self. So not to go super deep into the psychological portions, but yet another area that this book really helped us dive in deep to. Another area was life options, basically like life opportunities and things being colored or being filtered by the communal perspective. So in other words, if you're coming from a rough community, some of the opportunities that you think are available are only based off of what you were able to see in that community. Sometimes people are able to get over, the hedge or over out their area and see beyond the reef and see that there's more to the world than what you thought was in your box. Now, in my community, that is very apparent. My community is divided by a river. For a majority of my life, I didn't know. I lived on the west side. I didn't know what was on the east side at all. Later on, I ended up going to college right on the other side of the river. Different worlds. Didn't know the perspectives that people had on one side. I didn't know a whole lot of things. But I bring this up to say that sometimes opportunities will present themselves and be very different. And like the author showed in this book, it was a situation that caused for a new opportunity to kind of arise, and then for them to see that life can be a little different. There's more than just working in your community and just doing the jobs that you are aware of. There might be more opportunities, and sometimes you might need to talk to other people to get those. So that was definitely another one. Let's see. What's another one? I got my notes over here, just making sure that I get everything and cover it. Emotional regulation, both in and out. So the book, once again, Cry Like a Man. This book wasn't about crying in general. It wasn't like, oh man, go in a corner and cry, blah, blah, blah. It was about the fact that the process of crying has been demonized as being weak. And that is not the case. Emotional regulation is as much internal as it is about pushing things out. If you just take things in, you're going to let it out. And sometimes you let it out in tears, but other times you may let it out in rage. Sometimes you may let it out in creativity. But too much of one is not good for the other. It's about a balance. In my field of mental health, it is all about balance. It's all about how are you internalizing things as much as how are you expressing yourself. If you're not doing one for the sake of the other, you're missing a part of the process. So in this book, it talks about how he came to the point to where crying was the relief of some of the stressors that had been built up all throughout his life. And I'm willing to argue that some of us have some tears that have never been released. Because of reading this book, there were some men in our group that admitted that, hey, I have some things in me that maybe not have manifested into tear format, but I have not felt like I've had a space or a time or opportunity to relieve that pressure. Some of us are trying to relieve pressures in ways that we know how, but it's not relieving that pressure, if that makes any sense. So I highly recommend that you get this book, that you explore some of the topics that were brought up. There are more than just the ones I brought up, but for the sake of not having you here all day, I just covered some of those that the men said were very important. So shout out to the author. I don't know the author firsthand, but I feel like I know you now after I read the book. The book was what's up. Shout out to you, sir, for writing this. If once you read the book, you'll realize he does a lot more. Like he has his own videos and things of that nature. So explore Jason Wilson. I'll put the information down below. But men, I invite you to join in, whether it's the book club that I host or any other book club. We need to be reading more. We need to be in discussion more. So I hope that this video adds some perspective. I hope that this book incites, gives you some hope. I'm holding it up just so you see it. Some people are visual. This is the book. This is what it looks like. So whether you go to Amazon or you find it in your bookstore, whatever it may be, just cop the book, read it on audiobook, whatever it may be. But I invite you to get into some type of fellowship, some type of group, just to share with one another. That feeling of being able to release some of your thoughts and pressures, and then being able to have a group of men behind you that's like, hey, brother, I feel you, or brother, that's a new perspective. Let's explore this, is a beautiful thing. And if you have any questions for me, or you've read the book already and think that there's other things that I should have said in the video, that's cool. Leave it in the comment section below so that other people can see, be encouraged to read more, to do more in their communities, things of that nature. That's all I got for you for this week, guys. This has been another book review, mind statement of the week. Stay tuned for more book reviews and more videos coming soon. All right, Dr. J. Duncan, as always, the smallest change in perspective can change life. Peace.